Shout hallelujah, shout hallelujah, shout hallelujah unto the Lord. Sing it again, say, shout hallelujah. We're singing, shout hallelujah unto the Lord.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Discovery Bible Study here at the Beltline Church of Christ. We are so glad that you joined us today. We are getting close to wrapping up our study of the book of Judges. We have been talking about some very disturbing things, just to be honest, over the last couple of weeks.
Yes.
We saw not only the ridiculousness of Samson, we have moved from them to this Levite and his concubine. And if you remember the story from last week, it was not a pretty picture. She is abused, she's basically murdered, and the Levite then cuts her body into 12 pieces and sends them throughout Israel to try to elicit a response.
Yeah,
and so
and
what
he does.
And what we're going to get, what we're getting today is the response. And so we're going to kind of split this story in half. We're going to read about 28 verses this week, and we'll finish this story next week. And then the following week, if the Lord wills, we'll wrap up the book of Judges. So Trey is going to read to us from Judges chapter 20 from the New Living Translation. Trey, take it away.
Then all the Israelites were united as one man, from Dan in the north to Beersheba in the south, including those from across the Jordan in the land of Gilead. The entire community assembled in the presence of the Lord at Mizpah. The leaders of all the people and all the tribes of Israel, 400,000 warriors, armed with swords, they took their positions in the assembly of the people of God. Word soon reached the land of Benjamin that the other tribes had gone up to Mizpah. The Israelites then asked how this terrible crime had happened. The Levite, the husband of the woman who had been murdered, said, "My concubine and I came to spend the night in Gibeah, a town that belongs to the people of Benjamin. That night, some of the leading citizens of Gibeah surrounded the house, planning to kill me, and they raped my concubine until she was dead. So I cut her body into 12 pieces and sent the pieces throughout the territory assigned to Israel, for these men have committed a terrible and shameful crime. And then all of you, the entire community of Israel, must decide here and now what should be done about this." All the people rose to their feet in unison and declared, none of us will return home, no, not even one of us. Instead, this is what we will do to Gibeah. We will draw lots to decide who will attack it. 1/10 of the men from each tribe will be chosen to supply the warriors with food, and the rest of us will take revenge on Gibeah of Benjamin for this shameful thing they have done in Israel. So all the Israelites were completely united, and they gathered together to attack the town. The Israelites sent messengers to the tribe of Benjamin, saying, "What a terrible thing has been done among you. Give up those evil men, those troublemakers from Gibeah, and so we can execute them and purge Israel of this evil." But the people of Benjamin would not listen. Instead, they came from their towns and gathered at Gibeah to fight the Israelites. In all, 26,000 of their warriors, armed with swords, arrived in Gibeah to join the 700 elite troops who lived there already. Among Benjamin's elite troops, 700 were left-handed, and each of them could sling a rock and hit a target within a hair's breadth without missing.
Wow.
Israel had 400,000 experienced soldiers armed with swords, not counting Benjamin's warriors. Before the battle, the Israelites went to Bethel and asked God which tribe should go first to attack the people of Benjamin. The Lord answered, "Judah is to go first." So the Israelites left early the next morning, and they camped near Gibeah. And then they advanced towards Gibeah to attack the men of Benjamin. But Benjamin's warriors, who were defending the town, came out and killed 22,000 Israelites on the battlefield that day. But the Israelites encouraged each other and took their positions again at the same place they had fought the previous day. For they had gone up to Bethel and wept in the presence of the Lord until evening. And they had asked the Lord, "Should we fight against our relatives from Benjamin again?" And the Lord had said, "Go out and fight against them." So the next day they went out again to fight the men of Benjamin. But the men of Benjamin killed over 18,000 Israelites, all of whom were experienced with the sword. So then all the Israelites went up to Bethel and wept in the presence of the Lord and fasted until evening. They also brought burnt offerings and peace offerings to the Lord. The Israelites went up seeking direction from the Lord. In those days, the Ark of the Covenant of God was in Bethel. And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar and the grandson of Aaron, was the priest. The Israelites asked the Lord, should we fight our relatives from Benjamin again, or should we stop? The Lord said, go. Tomorrow I will hand them over to you.
Well, all right. There is half the story. We'll get the victorious side next time, but rather than reading for the entire day, we thought we should probably stop there halfway through and see if there's some truths and some lessons that we can learn. So, Keith, let's dive into our questions. What's question number uno?
Question number one, what do we learn about God from this passage? What do we learn about God from these passages? I love how they finally turn back to God. You know, in the last couple chapters it says, and there was no king in the area.
Right.
And now it's like, okay, so now we're going to go fight somebody. We're going to go to battle against them. And then they go, okay, so let's, and this is after they kind of assembled everybody. And they say, okay, let's go talk to God.
Yeah.
And I know I'm kind of
It's
jumping ahead as far
about
as
time.
it's like, God was still there. God's always there. God's always present. Even though we turn and run from Him, He's still there. And we need to turn to God in the good times and the bad times, not just when we're fixing to go out to battle and we need God on our side. We need to remember God is with us all the time.
So let me ask a question here.
Uh-oh.
So what is the difference in the first two cries, which ultimately did not cost 40,000 soldiers their lives, and this last cry? Why did it take these three cries? What's the difference? I think there's a very significant difference in what they do in the first two versus what they do in the third.
I know what I'm thinking, and I'm almost afraid to say it because it's being recorded. Was God teaching them a lesson? I know God allows us, if we go out, if I want to take a hammer and slam it onto the desk with my hand underneath the hammer, God's going to let me do it.
Mm-hmm.
And God's going to let me know the pain in my hand after I hit it with a hammer. Does God encourage me to hit my hand with a hammer? No. But He gives me the free will to do what I want to. What was their attitude? What was their motivation? Were they going there just because one person was killed? They had to know how the people were living long before that.
Yeah.
So why didn't they go to God before and say, hey, we need to do this? Why was it an urgency then to step up and go to battle?
Yeah.
And but I hate the thought of saying, well, God let that many people die.
Yeah, 40,000 people.
Yes.
22
That
the
was
first day,
experienced
18.
soldiers.
Exactly. And whew, what do you think, Trey?
Okay, so my take on it, I guess I'm kind of answering the where did you see God and your question at the same time.
Okay.
So God is sovereign. He knows so much more than we know, and He knows the lives of these people either go on into eternity in paradise or in torment based on their individual lives, because He judges us individually. And so the presence of God is obviously here. Here's God. He is finally turned to by these people who have turned away from Him over and over again. And when they do, He responds and He does give them the message to go. But then, seemingly, He's not giving them victory, is what it looks like. And so in twofold, He is helping them to understand that things don't always go easy. Things aren't always going to be just simple. And if they could look back in time and remember the group who came out of Egypt and the hardship that they faced, and the fact that none of the first generation was allowed to even go into the land because of their disobedience. And here's kind of the same thing happening. God's saying, "Hey, I've got to clean you up of some. There's a lot of unfaithful people. I mean, God selected Judah, to be the first. He was very specific, and that's what they did. And so I see God working here in their lives, both helping them to understand truth through pain and through suffering. Again, He knows these people, and these people who are dying, that are going out in the name of God and trying to bring justice. He knows them, and so when we hear about their deaths, it's very easy for us to say, "Well, where's God?"
Yeah.
But you got to remember, life does not end at physical death, and it goes on, and He knows that so much more than we do. And so these people who are lost during these battles, they're not lost. Okay, God knows exactly where they are and what they are, and they are His people. So.
And then plus with the tribe of Benjamin, with the numbers,
No, go ahead.
okay, they should be able to go in and just totally annihilate that tribe. And God says, okay, yeah, go. Okay, go. Now the numbers are so small. It's like if we go back the third time, there's no way we can win. And
Yeah.
God said, okay, you go now.
Now you got, yeah.
So they know the power.
You guys got deep on me there.
Do we? Oh, we didn't know where
I
you were
wasn't
going,
anticipating that. And so the difference to me as I look at this is they offered a peace offering and they offered a burnt offering before they went the third time. So this is just the way I'm looking at this. The first two times they're saying, God, we want you to do what we want you to do. Then the third time they stop and say, okay, let's back up.
We've seen.
We got to get ourselves right. Now we come into the presence of God and we can say, God, what is this really? Is this your will for this to be done? And God says, yes, it is. And away they go. You wonder sometimes, how did God communicate with them as well?
Yeah.
Did they use lots? Did they use the Urim and the Thummim and those kind of things?
And it's possible.
How did this happen? Was it, okay, let's just roll the dice. Okay, you're up. You get to go. And then giving God credit for choosing that. We're not really told about that. But I do see a difference in the third one in that they consecrated themselves first. Then they cried out to God. Yeah. Whereas in the first one, they're like, God, we want you to do this, and so tell us what you want us to do first.
Well, they were humiliated. It's
yeah,
like they go through with all those
times.
warriors. It's like, oh, we're just going to just annihilate them.
So, and part of it, this is gonna. So they had 400,000 troops, and they lost 40,000. So that's a tithe.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it's like, is this a tithe to God that they have to pay because of how evil and how far away they've gone from God? I don't know. That's maybe way too deep, but I do see a difference in time 3 than in the first 2 times with that sacrifice where they're putting themselves there. So, anyway, sorry, I had to chase that rabbit.
I like
a little
it.
bit.
I think that's
what
valid.
do you think? I mean, what would you say? So maybe you need to hit pause and have this conversation with the people around you. What do you see different about time 1, 2, and ultimately time 3? Anyway, let's look at question number 2, Keith.
Question number 2, what do we learn about people from these passages? What do we learn about people from these passages? Growing up Church of Christ, I always looked at the children of Israel and thought, they're so weak. They're just so passive. They're just, they're the lower person on the run. They're just not that smart, not intelligent, not that warrior-like. When you have that many people who can throw a rock and hit something,
hit a hair?
Yes. That is awesome. And you think how powerful they were. And they were. And they had so much talent, they had so much skill, but they continued to turn away from God. And how many times in our life do we sit there and say, oh, I've got it all together. I don't need God. My life is perfect right now. So God, I've got it from here. You just kind of take a break, go help somebody else. I'll take it from here. And we're doing the same thing that they're doing here. We got to remember that we need to lean on God all the time. And like them, they finally turn back to God. We need to remember that. We need to be humble enough to always learn we've got to lean on God.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
I was just going to say that based on their failure, to overcome in those first 2 times, sometimes even when God says yes, there's still some struggle that has to occur. There's still a battle in my heart and in our hearts for us to become what we desire and what God desires for us. And we may be able to see that clearly, what we're supposed to be or what we're supposed to do, and yet actually getting there's going to be growing pains. It's going to be. It's not like we just instantly become what we want to be. It's a growth, and there has to be growing pains, and there has to be struggle to become what we should. And we talk a lot about shared suffering, and I think this is part of it.
Yeah.
Going through the fire, going through the pain, brings you out on the other side a stronger person, a more able person, and a person who now has a wisdom through experience that can make better decisions in the future. And so, I don't know. I kind of see when I see this, I see myself, I see all of us and the struggles that we have to face. And we better learn from them. We better recognize, sometimes we get mad at God. Sometimes we say, well, God, this is obvious what I'm supposed to be doing. How come I keep getting defeated? It wasn't long ago. We had this COVID situation where missionaries weren't able to go where they were supposed to go, and they had made plans. They had, there was money that was already spent, and then those trips were just ended. And they many of them had to sit and wait. And all of us experience that to some extent. But just think about those who had this message from God to be taken to people who desperately need it, who don't know Jesus, and even they were sidelined. Even God's message, was sidelined during this time. Well, why? Why would God allow this to happen? Well, I don't know all the reasons.
Yeah.
But obviously, I believe that there's reasons, because I believe that God is sovereign, and I believe that He saw all of that, and that He's going to bring about what's best, even though we went through a time like that. Same with them.
Well, I see this kind of along the same lines. I see we typically do the same thing that Israel does. We go out on our own power first, and we say, let's see if I can accomplish this by myself. I've got 400,000 troops. I don't even need all of them. I'll take a tenth from this and a tenth from that, and we'll go do our thing, right? So we go in our own strength first, but it's not until they go in the strength of God that they have victory. And so I just want to say to you who are listening to this, stop going out in your own strength. Rather than go out in your own strength and be disappointed, or even if you are successful, that's not going to be a long-term success. It's ultimately what we see here is, even though they are successful, they go right back into the same nonsense that they began with. And so I think as you think about people, what's to say about people is we want to pull ourselves up from our own bootstraps first. We want to make it about our abilities, our resources, our stuff. And I think the church may be the worst offender of this. We want to go in our own strength. We want to go, we have this much money in the bank, and we have this, and we have that, and so, okay, let's make all of these plans. Okay, now that we know that we can't possibly fail, we'll move.
Right.
Rather than saying, God, I don't know where this is going to come from, but we believe in you, and we trust you, and we're going to call on you first, and then we're going to move in faith, knowing that you're going to show up and be in the middle of all of that. And that's such a huge difference, right?
I love the story about the guy. He needs a parking spot from the courthouse, and he prays to God, please give me a parking spot right in front of the courthouse. There's not one, so he circles and he prays again. He circles and he prays again. And the fifth time around, there's an open spot. And he says, okay, God, never mind, I got it, and pulls in. and sometimes we're like that. It's like we pray when we need him, but then we think, okay, we don't need him.
Yeah.
Well, God provided that spot. It's
like we always need him.
That's good. That's good. Anything else you want to add to that? Trey, you got something there?
No,
Keith, we good?
No, but mine's going to kind of go what you said into the next question. So
Okay, well,
I
let's
was worried you were going to jump on there.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder. So
I know.
Go ahead and then go to question
how will
3.
you take this, or how will you put this into practice? How will you put this in practice? I love verse 1, and let me just read it again. To all the people of Israel came out of Dan to Beersheba, including the land of Gilead, and the congregation assembled as one man to the Lord. We've got to assemble as one person, not one man, but one person. We are all different people. Each of us have different talents. Each of us have different strengths, different weaknesses. We've got to come together. And for me, I want to make sure I start looking around and, one, realize my talent, my weaknesses, and build on that. Learn who I can lean on for my strength or my weaknesses. And I got to start looking around for other people to see how I can plug them into certain areas and help them grow in their strength or grow in their weakness, or not grow their weakness, but grow out of their weakness. And I just want to make sure that we are working, or I am working, as one in this congregation.
Yeah, that's good. And there was a preacher that talked about that whole oneness and unity thing not too long ago. I don't remember which one that was, but no, you're right. I mean, they finally came out together in force. Now, again, I think they were a little going in their own energy first before they got back to where they needed to be. But I think you're right. I think that's huge. If we stand together as one, especially when we let God be first, there's no battle we can't fight. You think about the Tower of Babel. The problem wasn't that they had all of these resources that they brought together. It was that they didn't put God first in it. He said, we got to go confuse their languages, because if they stick together, there's nothing they can't do. And so it's a negative, but yet you could also see it as a positive. If we put God first and do what He calls us to do, there's nothing we can't accomplish. And so I think that's huge.
And talking about the Tower of Babel, I love it because even in Iraq now, there's the terrain down there is just flat, and there's just a mound kind of going straight up. And even the Muslims say they refer to that back as the Tower of Babel, and it's still there as a reminder to us. It's like
it's good.
We got to remember,
wow,
God is God, we're not.
Yeah,
so. That's right.
All right, Trey, what you got?
Okay, so my takeaway
Don't mind the phone that's ringing in the background.
My takeaway is this question in verse 3. Then the Israelites asked how this terrible crime had happened. It seems like this, this is said several times back in 19 and in 20. How could this have happened
How
in
did we
Israel?
get here?
Yeah, how did we get here? Well, duh. You got here because you left God out of everything. You moved him from everything. You forsook his law. You quit doing the things that he had commanded you to do, and you did whatever you wanted to do. Remember, each man did what was right in his own eyes, and that is the recipe for disaster. Okay, that's obviously what led to this situation. And yet, the people who are in the situation are saying, "Why did this happen? How could this get here?" And I'm reminded of James chapter 3 and verse 16 specifically, but I'm going to read verse 15 and 16. It says, "For jealousy and selfishness are not God's kind of wisdom. Such things are earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. For wherever there is jealousy and selfish ambition, there you will find confusion and every kind of evil." Confusion. It seems like that's where these people are. How could this happen? Where did this happen? Well, why? Because you've given yourself to every kind of evil. This is what's going to happen when you forget God, when you walk away from him, when you don't include him in your plans, when you don't actually walk with the Lord and seek him first and let him add all these things rather than trying to add all these things and then
Throw a little God at the end
stamp
of it.
God on the end of it. And so that's my application is, why are things the way they are? Because we've forgotten God. And in our culture today, you can look around and we ask the same question, don't we?
Right.
How did we get here? How did we get to this place where people act the way that they do, and they speak and talk the way that they do, and the music that we hear just walking around our own neighborhoods, the language that you hear in that, and the television shows that and even the commercials coming on during sports broadcasts and the things that are being said that are just not consistent with reality and are devoid of morality whatsoever. How did we get here? We left God out. And until Christians realize that our part to play in this is to make more Christians, is to disciple, and is to give these the truth to other people so that they then can also walk in the light, they're going to continue to walk in darkness, and we shouldn't be surprised when darkness produces more darkness.
And you said the word jealousy. To me, that's a key point, because we sit there and try to compare ourselves to everyone around us,
Right.
and we want to be either equal to or better than them.
Yep.
We got to judge ourselves against God.
Absolutely.
We got to try to impress God, not our neighbors.
Well, that was a whole lot better than I thought it would be, guys. I didn't know where we were going to go with this text
And we were
today.
short last week, I think, so I think we kind of made up
I
for
think
it.
we're
Maybe.
I think we're close. So question 4 is always the same. Who else do you know that needs to hear this? I hope that you will share this study with them, and that you'll get ready to get back here with us next Wednesday as we start to wrap up the book of Judges. By the way, if you have any suggestions about what you would like to see us kind of tackle next, please send something to myself, to Trey, to Keith, or talk to us if you see us in church. Or if you're from far away, send an email to office@beltlinechurchofchrist.org, and we'll try to do what we can to keep this fresh and vibrant and moving in the right direction. So thank you for joining us today. Hope you have a great week, and God bless, and we'll see you soon.